Namo Guru Be Namo Buddhaya Namo Dharamahaya Namo Sanghaya Namo Guru Namo Buddhaya Namo Dharamaya Namo Sanghaya Namo Guru Namo Buddhaya Namo Dharamaya Namo Sanghaya Kande Lai Guen Jian Du Gane Lao Gai Shou Sa Bon Jie Chun Zhen Zi Che Jian Jia Bu Guen Jian Lo San Se Dan Jie Ba Niao Di Xie Song Song Jian Jie Nan Ga Xian Jie Bian Jian Di Jie Zhen Lai Ma Ye Bian Zong Gang Tai Lun Di Bi Xiao Yu Nai Qian Chong Du Diao Yan Bai Jie Qi Yao Yu Jiao Shu Song Song Xiao Jie Jun Gu Jiao Biao Lu Zhen Tu Yao Yu Sang Yu Nai Bi Yao Yu Ju Li Xie Tai Biao Biao Ji Lao Mian Zhen Biao Gu Tong Jian Qian Bi Tiao Yun Dian Lai Chang Zi Ye Wu Qu Yun Nai Zui Mian Dong Zang Qiao Yu Xian Du Bi Nai Zi Qiao Chang Wei Xiang Ye Zhi Qiao Yu Jian Jian Cong Di Xiao Yu Nai Xian Zhong Qiao Yu Lai Qiao Bai Bi Kan Xian Tong Mian Tiao Yu Nian Sai Ba Liu Yu Nga Yi Ji Mi Ga Ji Jian Dang Qiao Yu Ba La Yu Dong Ba Song Yu Ji Mi Tian Shou Niao Yu Nian Ji Ba Chao Yu Bi Song Song Xiang Niao Yu Mian Dian Dian Man Dian Zhu La Qiao Yu Jian Ban Bian Zan Zhu Dian Yuan Ji Gong Bo Qian Jian La Jian Zian Ban Tai Zhai San Ban Tai Bi Ye Ran Ngo Jian Zhen La Dan Ba Xian Nam Che Gu Ka La Jian So
大给谢谢解约所能解，着了本身
三间诸佛
三界学道所界学
相当老相救帮助当年教中学大业学学结缘所能
界照了偏切的三界诸佛圣洁他们也都投下了那么我样到做的生意恐怕是不是那个他把这体系的特别学生也不可能小有是嘛在这么等级三代的三不学习
Let me remind all of ourselves to take a moment and cultivate the highest form of motivation. We call it bodhicitta motivation, seeking complete enlightenment for the sake of all other sentient beings. With that kind of at least contrived bodhicitta motivation, we should participate in this Lamrim teaching on the stages of the path leading to enlightenment by Manjushri Lama Tsongkhapa. Allow me to read about a page or two from this Lamrim Chemo, the great Lamrim text, volume number 3 in English translation, starting from page 159.
Kaji Sudani de Mingobe, Don Nazulazo, Vijay Rangawe, Mingoba in Jivete, La Juvi, Bigo Ramon, Shin Videte, Donella, Dini, Juvi, Bigo, Mingolo, Toba Yuji. Rudella Maye, Morongo, Bala, Tomi, Juvi, Bingona. Gabadi Dani, the Shagavi, Dini, Juvi, Jawadi, Mingo, Bani, Lovanda, Bijon, Sasson, the Shijabi, and Jabali. Kede number Javi, Jawa, Navadonje, the Kabali, the Jame, Brate, Vandana, the Jama. Tabuni to Minja, motion, Beloso, Dagina, Washan, Shana, Dinjo. Me Baratan Jury, the Tadan, Tumbarmishi, Tedamingo, Jamalos, Tadan, Shadow. She saw some number of Java, Shavani, Tikoni, Lavachu, beautiful, Java number to do a couple of Shavan. Gasala, Shavarama, Java, Insetam, Jekache, Babu, Motion, Shizo, Tony, Javatam J, Kagano, Motion, Jubu, Don Ratan, Ralasoba Kidu, Tonji, Bana, Tamje, Tom Be, Made in Yola. They done Tenjin, 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 maybe John, Jigbe, Toshi, when they were Tamje, don't you? Motion Belas of Java, Mebata, Mentai, Jamalas of Batanga, the Bodan Shinji, Jago, young Shabi, Javali, the Milos of Missino, teacher, etc., Milos of Ombio, de Nam de Nam Lege, number maybe number Shach, Jihuja, again, the Namji, number Yuni Kagam. Kede Milasoba, no go back to be teacher, Damagaja Gojan. Number Giovanni, Rashin Soba, Lord Giovanni, Gojan, and there go over Gogi, Milasoba. Oh, she is the Dejendra one Jomi, Legend number Mani, Mingo Goti, because she number member never miss Mila Soba, you buy it. Repeat this, I go, there's a Maji, Mingo, Shindy Saw, Zumbi, the Jibe Kaba Shindu, the other Jibe Kapchik, the Sumon, Masumba Tangela and Day. Jenny Jama Jargos, dinner, and in Betsawa, you didn't do you be very big gola. You but repeat gola, you but something go on, Ribanama, so was she was some big. Ribani, Rashi, Mitsawa, baby, Kaba, Rashi, Kachi, doing Bindi, Dima Sheba, De Sheba Show. Tenda Lendena, Mingo Baramase, Oma Baby, Kelango, Sundi, Lundi training. Teacher keeping GDB to allow Geshe when a number Java de Conan Toma the Judo to Majuk Bar. Lena Jive number me was a Jimmy de Kelan, the Tribal June to the Jideba. Tamji Kelam Macho, his or Detan around, give them Banija number Shabi, Shibi to the Mutana baby, Kunza number Shabal. Nune devani nambara jo be nam sha la na ge wa yu no nang ge jo ma yin be devani nambara jo ba pu du shu ye ke ba she da rong nam sha ti ni la na ge jung se jang me na ni tu tam na te la be be ri be kun zo be nambara sha ba ba se yen je ma ge wa yin no se se le je je ni be tu ma tam ba kun zo be je be dem ba mi ge pe la la te ba ju ni be ri ba ma ba le ti number ji ba ra she ba yin ku ne kun zo ye dem ba number jo ba la ke be ji ji ti be sho ni la ne te kun zo ye sho ji se be ji ri ge be ta te ba she ji be do ba she ji ji de be ge ra ta ra ji de be chu lu le nya ba chu kho na do ba she ba yin ji kun zo ba ne ba ma yin no ba she kun zo le nya bi tu da mo wa kho na go ge kunzo mendo go xie so ye ve ti ni la ju ve ri pe che wa ju ne kunzo ba na ni je ba la de ni jo ba la me ge ba so ba kunzo be so ri be go ba ni lo bu de go ba de ni me no do na o ma re ba ma si be ran de ba ni na ya xie ba the Payu Jive Jodama Nanji Lula Kaza Shinji Koi, the Inji Namshala do a Yubajang. Kono gave a Naja Jive, the Bani Jive, the Becho Jive, Kunza Beton, Musin Jaman Devani, Giovanni, Jigajang, Yeva Maino, she, Kuja, Maus. That Kazan has a direct content, Karsa. 파까야 다 되네 그런 게 됐어도 그래서 세며 전데 되거나 세며 저고 우리 디모도 요물 다디 봐 그래서 제와시네 유는 되거나 집에 세며 저 당이 세며 저고리스 어디 발라우잖아 다 디시도 되고 됐어요 될 가지 되더라 수소 당이데 문고 배 문고 배돈 나서서 이제대랑가 뭐 Mingo Yinji, Tini Jeve, Ribio Goba Bani, Hindi Medit, Dongdi and Tini Jeve, Ribio Gomo, Toba Yiji, Judah Loma Goro Toba and maybe shares. So that quote the Himoji said the Hashang looking together the Himoji said that the Jeremy soon Gagali. In tiny to be sure time the Himoji was a long cemetery, Miss Yaji, Himo said, Hen was said, what did you that you say, Lomojo, not the so. What did you talk on it? You don't shashi de any Jideva, any union do in the middle say, I think tell ya Tipeji chain and Goyaji or Marwa. Or the mirrors all going to go Maris. That couldn't do the mango not that this word. Did not the man last week, a machine could go in New York, you don't know Maris. What is what? Two more years said that nothing more years, you were not. Conji 2 more to say it, Del Zedua. Conji Tikoni, Jebashinta, thousands and Mindu say, Jevashua. What that is it that Tikoni Jevashadua? That is it, Jeva Beva Gangue Gol, you said it, and the 2 cities. What is it? What is it? What should nothing more shots? But you don't Shagumaris. What's the dish and take Maris? And Karsa, you did tell you never did, you did tell you men and Hijab and Joan David to the Gangalia in a told about the Russian Google, you did tell you Namshabi, any leadership with Namsha Ganga, any umbrella sober Ganga in Betangi, the Jideo Shavan and show you soon to us. Or shall the she was you in similar to the men and Digmaris or teenagers.
Geshe read from 159 to 161 to give us the blessing of oral transmission first. And so back to page 159. where we left off last time, and we pick up from there. And what we find stated there is this. The opponents have contended that if something exists, its existence must be validated by through ultimate rational analysis. Okay? And so when we don't find anything, under that kind of analysis, so then they said that really nothing exists at all, because that is the test for something existing or not. Okay? And mathematicians have been responding to that. Well, you cannot apply that test, to establish whether something exists or not. We assert there is another kind of what we call conventional valid cognitions. It's their job, so to speak, right? And whether something exists or not is validated by conventional valid cognitions, not through the ultimate rational analysis, right? As you contended. So, that's the mathematicians respond to that. So mathematicians are telling them, by your standard, just because we all agree, nothing is findable under ultimate rational analysis, you conclude that nothing exists at all, which means, so you are saying that that is the standpoint of Arya Nagarjuna, on ultimate reality. And so ultimately, nothing exists at all, and we cannot agree with that. Okay? So that, how can we deny the existence of all the things that the world accepts, isn't it? So now the opponent comes back like, no, we also accept things exist, but things exist for the perceptions of just ordinary people, like shepherds. Ordinary means that their perceptions have not been influenced by schools of thought or tenets. These are ordinary, regular people. So we said, things exist for their perceptions. Okay, but that is the same thing as saying, from mathematicians' point of view, where they say that things exist for mistaken perceptions, but they really don't exist, isn't it? So what comes to the point is that it doesn't matter, even if you say things exist for the perceptions of ordinary, down-to-earth people like shepherds, who have not been exposed to the philosophy of thoughts and tenets, but you are really basically saying at the end that they exist for their mistaken perceptions. So what exists for the mistaken perceptions could not exist, right? So it comes to the same thing. You are basically denying the conventional existence of phenomena, and we cannot accept that as the standpoint of Arya Nagarjuna.
어디 가자 기와 마자신 타가스고는 네 소미 드라미세 나히 케란데나 에네 마상보다 르본라나 이샤르고 시다 티차서는 에네 윤데 텐데세 나야다는 요모 디두데스 시다디 더더 가자 쉐와디 자고 이지면지 에네 강 생이 좋아서 랑시 저어디 쳬버 자고 디 마자는 디레레도 디레레서나 에네 쉐탄지베 통지 윤데 텐데 남자다 미지베 통지데베 통바서나 다 ngô mai nó duyên năm sao mà rồi và chỉ thế mình sao anh duyên đến năm sao cái jiu rồi đủ sự đủ mình đủ sẽ là thì mà sao bên năng si mà đấy thì dùm năng si đấy sự ta mà sao bên ta dùm anh chơi rồi chứ tao thì dùm ta mà bây giờ xong rồi mà thì dùm ta năng sẽ chỉ tay nó phong cách này nó chỉ năng là chỉ anh thì lo chơi rồi mà tao mà sao bên ta từ từ sao anh mà rồi suy nghĩ nó mà rồi sẽ ta tao nói đồng chí chơi thì dùm năng gì sẽ cho mà đấy 어때 나더라 시면 세워라 어때래 메이지 근데 마샤부나 시마레스 마샤부나 예는 윤대 샤도 문도 윤대 샤도 문은 근데 자지 강가 메데버레로와 어때 쓰인다.
So what is explained here is that mathematicians, of course, my footnote, we're thinking in terms of Prasangiga mathematicians here, they do accept that things exist conventionally. They do accept cause and effect relationship among things. They do accept the law of karma and its outcomes, right? And these things have been stated over and again in great works like the 400 stanzas of Aryadeva, and in a commentary on that by Chandrakirti and so forth. So Madhyamikans are accepting that law of karma and cause and effect do exist. Okay? So they are not denying or refuting that kind of existence. And so the crux of matter here is, as we try to emphasize this before also, first we have to make sure what is being refuted or negated. We call it gaksha, but refuted. And according to the Madhyamikans, it is the intrinsic reality or intrinsic existence, or it is the essentialized existence. Yeah. So once we have very clear image of that, and now we test whether or not things exist intrinsically or essentially or not. And so at the end of the ultimate rational analysis, what we don't find is things don't exist intrinsically or essentially. And that is refuting the intrinsic reality, not the conventional reality or the conventional nature of things. So that's a big distinction and difference, and that has to be taken into account. If we don't pay attention to the object of negation, whatever it is, we say intrinsic reality, and that just we go in search of whether things exist or not, then our ultimate rational analysis will end up negating the conventional reality, and that becomes a nihilist position. So that would be same as the examples given here is horns on a rabbit or hare's head, or a child of a barren woman, which is not possible. So we are not saying that things don't exist at all, and they are just like the horns on a hare's head, or a child of a barren woman or a lady. So Madhyamikans are telling the opponent, you cannot accuse us of not accepting conventional reality or cause and effect and karma and actions. We are not destroying the conventional realities. We do accept them as they are. What we are saying is this: things are not like horns on a rabbit's head or hare's head, or a child of a barren woman. We are saying that things are just like an illusion, magical creation. Okay? Now, the way that example works is, when a magician plays tricks on us, and creates these horses and elephants out of nothing, right, out of pebbles and twigs, right? What is there is still, because of the magic, we do get appearances of elephants and horses, isn't it? We cannot deny that. The appearances of horses and elephants do exist. But we also know, and these are not real horses and elephants, isn't it? They appear as horses and elephants, but they are not real horses and elephants. So there is a disparity between what appears to our perception and what actually exists, isn't it? So we are saying, Madhyamikans said, that things are just like that magical creation or like an illusion. We are not saying things are non-existent like horns on a rabbit's head.
Goba dribi, Sita Makachena, Sita Tishu, that Muso Ranshimena, any time that the game gets to come, that the Geshe took the Ombo took the Nami in Sivorva, but this was it. Said the Ombo took the Nami share, any Kajil game get on Nigasha, what in the Namja Shivorva, in the Namja Tegumar was that Ranshimeta, in the Gaga to Sena. In the year in the Nami the direct Karsa Shaji in Namja de Kagami, Jide Guzuna Shagu years. Tell it than Kajaka is no time corner this door. Kedi Misola go drive Sheta Magachina, Chonong Miso Rahi Trabaka was. Sheta Miso Rahi Trabaka design and the Miso Shalika was. Sheta Miso 가도 노스
no,
이거 됐어 뭐라
no.
제는 고자겠네 넘버 저네 런시 소소 시바 인지 고자인들 고번은 고 저번 거기 매우 소발라 시기 땡진 저원 중에서 레이 넘버 매바니는 민보고 뒤치를 뒤에 거기 넘버 매베니 니가 매로서는 여번이도 히리게 대성고라 대성 민고제 현주 사와 송바 대 송바 대다른 제베 갑지도 송나 마송바 탐제는 탐제 자외 진내장 자르고서 세자다의 디 시잡을 저거 이제 로본 다타베 인디데 유루데 랑신이 자 탄예데 예스 아니 세버 휴송 시야세 가자 돈돈 세바 자니 세다 단다 갑지 가자 돈돈 세바 자이나 다 바로바로 가자 세바메 소미 다미 세야르 세유나 인텔야 가자 세바 자 소랑신이 다랑신이 자와 셰고레스 세 강갈 마자나네 인디 자니 셰고레스 고티스 게자
So we're on page 160. In the middle of the page, we have passage, kind of Q&A quoted from Chandrakirti's commentary on Aryadeva's 400 stanzas on middle way called Chatukshedhak. And so explanation given on that is this. Still, opponent insists that mathematicians are negating, conventional existence of things such as eyes and other products. And they said you cannot do that because you accept that based on the karma, these things exist because of the karma. Like when we talk about the 6 sources, right? Eye source, ears, auditory source, and all of that. These are related to one's karma, And so we also, make distinctions among karma as positive karma, negative karma, neutral karma, and all of those things, right? And all of these things are related to the karma. And opponent is saying that if you say that these things don't exist intrinsically, then you're basically saying these things don't exist at all. So you are really undermining the law of karma and its outcomes, right? And again, the mathematicians are responding to that. And they said, we are not negating the functionality of things, law of karma and its outcomes. What we are negating or refuting is the intrinsic reality or the nature of these things. Okay? By refuting the intrinsic nature of these things, right, it's not the same as negating or refuting that these things do exist. Yeah? And as a matter of fact, Chandrakirti in his work has clearly made a distinctions between intrinsic existence and conventional existence, right? They are not the same thing. Non-existence and non-intrinsic existence. So those distinctions are, crucial to understand, our position that we are saying that things don't exist intrinsically, but that doesn't mean things don't exist at all. As a matter of fact, we do accept things exist, things such as eyes, and these are related to the karma. So then in the text, when we are making refutation, if we once mention it, that the objective negation is identified as intrinsic reality, then we may not qualify all our other terms by that, or intrinsic this, intrinsic form, intrinsic sound, intrinsic that, but one should understand to apply that to the rest of these other expressions. For example, in a text we might come across no forms, no sounds, no ears, no that, no this, right? But earlier somewhere, if, how to say, the term intrinsic nature reality has been used once, then we should carry it over to understand that no forms means no intrinsic forms. It doesn't mean no forms at all, period. It doesn't mean that. So we should be able to carry over that adjective, that characteristic intrinsic to the other expressions.
第一些感性的加些的，变成咱西进到兄弟肉些，当我说，他碰碰爱的是受人心面，现在那人心吃不下的，那咱们吃没着，现在的统统小药嘛是吧？我在第时的这刚刚，这个刚刚的那些大药是吧？现在的药说，你光这样的刚刚吃什么什么的，但开始可能第一妈加些，可都咱们吃没下的，咱学什么开灵吧？但是闹呢。现在刚才吃嘛加些闹出来的，是用着都是，但我这里多那个的。
So the crux of the matter here is if we read Paranjana Paramita Sutras, wisdom gone beyond sutras, and maybe at the beginning they mentioned Suk Rangshinji Meba. There are no intrinsic forms or intrinsically existent forms. And then that intrinsic characteristic or the adjective is dropped, and then it just keeps on saying no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, right? All of that. But that characteristics applies to all of those things. Now the opponents, they kind of, because that intrinsic adjective has been dropped, right? So they thought, okay, no form, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch. That means that literally they don't exist at all, right? They just take it on a literal meaning, and that's the problem, or the confusion there.
现在让我呢，只要一定的月呗，让我月吧，可是我月吧日边，我月吧日边过，月吧怎么过吧？你日吧那么让人说来呗送呗，日吧你让人月没做一呗，第一个呗让人干这呗同一呗，你切吧巧，现在把你这听到的呀。让一个把老脸是来，你们就有这个是咱们就是说，让一这么干的，什么都看的，看是让一这么干也是，现在没送多还是，现在第一在那让一这么当，就当于把你的，他看切过来的，开心不喜欢这些，我得切过是的，他说哪啥的哪啥，或者哪啥的哪样是吧
？So towards the bottom of page 160. Where the second paragraph from the bottom of reads, I quote, "Therefore, reason refutes essential existence, objective existence found on the side of the thing itself. It does not refute mere existence, period," and unquote. So explanation given on this is, as Chandrakirti has stated very clearly, what is negated or refuted is the intrinsic nature of things, intrinsic reality or intrinsic existence. So when we use reasoning, when we apply ultimate rational analysis to things, so what is sought under that analysis is whether things exist intrinsically or not whether things exist or not exist, right? Whether things exist intrinsically or not. And so when we don't find things to exist intrinsically, the conclusion is that, right, the intrinsic reality is not there, right? That's being refuted, not the mere existence or conventional existence of phenomena. And Chandrakirti says that, what I'm really refuting is the essential existence, intrinsic existence, and nothing else at all. Okay, I'm not saying anything. I'm saying there are no intrinsic realities. That's all I'm saying. And he also makes the clear distinction between Rangshinji Meba, no essential existence, intrinsic existence, and existence, right? They are not synonyms.
No, this is Sheba Chow did a Lindy no Mungo, Mazu Omabe, take care long, but Ogre on the long the tree in the teacher. Kevin G. David told the Sheda Sheba, number Sheba, take on your tongue, just the Tumba Majuba, Lena, number member, subject major in the care long day, driven the driven joint to do Jigdin. Tamji Jigdin Tanji care long show was did it. So the Omabe Rangi Tabakar, my Lende Maga, my Lende Kalemba Sonja, sit that Javende should that Sonja Sura.
No.
Take a Kebe Jigdive tone, Kiki, but number Javati, Toma Justum, was the Musum Tona Tapiki, Kanje, Raja Chawadu Yomare.
No.
So tell a repeat Teba Majuba Sena, Riba Majo, Conchizena, you're going to do Sia Java Majuga to shower.
No.
What the Kaling of a song has.
No.
Said that the Triban Juan did Lendega Kalang song has. Said the Kauji Pashan, the engine Kaling, so drove to us.
No.
This was that could the Kaji said that the Omeri because Gakaka, oh, just the guy over that I'm proud of the water.
So at the bottom of page 160 over to page 161, we find it stated is that as Chandrakirti has illustrated, Madhyamikins, do not refute or negate conventional reality at all. As a matter of fact, so they accept them, and there are, how should I say, descriptions about, right, the conventional realities. And as a matter of fact, the Madhyamikins, they really, when it comes to asserting conventional realities, they go with the world, And so the worldly valid perceptions, like, our direct visual, valid perceptions, and auditory valid perceptions that we, the world, have, right? So through our valid direct perception experiences, we know these forms and sounds exist. Okay? And Madhyamikins really accept those as they are, as the world accepts them. And Madhyamikins say that we don't have to apply rational analysis to find whether this exists or not. This should be accepted as the world accepts them. Right? You don't use reasoning, rational analysis to find out whether they exist conventionally or not. So applying ultimate rational analysis to find out conventional existence is a wrong application, And so Madhyamikins said, don't do that. We don't need to do analysis. We just accept how the world says these things exist by their valid perceptions, And so that's important to remember.
Oh, dear, that Kursa. Tonji, Tadan then that Jeremy, Kursa say here, she said that anyway, I didn't get that Tovasa when do so the Tadan that Jeremy did so I said, and the telecommander said, does in taking long time to speak. Kursa Hansan never so child make it. Thank you much to say that the Kiva Mongo Delia Goko in it. Omerica Ganga at the end of the day, you make Michigan was there to that. Those just Riba Ribati Ranjika said, the Ranjika said, that don't see the and the Gaja Mazimiche. And she done the corner and the Pumba could say with the card from what sugar is. Oh, did the year meso. And that means what do Halwan? She said, should do or that Ganto the Ali teaching over Gaza the Nusum. That I couldn't join the Kane shows in the Ranji to Gaza, the Kandel, Kandel, they have more this. But this is what they have gone into the Lobati Ganga Yungumara. The German Legion of your Karsa. Ranji Linji get disease stuff so much in the end of the goes in go with Mother Jail. She don't be Demba made any Ranji meals in any. That job at the tennis, that jazz, that has a chava in or middle that kid on the give me a chance to get here. Said that Tindaji got just John led in the quantity Ranchi made lovely with you a paint I am well level. May have something to say in the paint I was good.
So, thanks to Lama Tsongkhapa and of course Chandrakirti for illustrating these things for us. So, based upon their explanation, maybe now we see kind of intellectually, there is a difference between intrinsic reality or existence and conventional existence. But back in ancient time, before Rinpoches and all of that, many even great minds, scholars really struggle with this, and many of them really miss the whole point. And so because they have a very, very brilliant mind, they applied all kinds of analysis like 4 modes of production analysis, whether things are produced from self or from others or from both or from neither, and all these other reasonings they apply. And then at the end, many of them, not all of them, but, they thought that in ultimate analysis, nothing exists at all, right? I mean, when you go profoundly in search of that, they say nothing exists at all, And so that reached a very kind of a erroneous conclusion. And where it all went wrong, so to speak, if we can, retrospectively, we look back at that, and based upon Jerry Much's works and is in the beginning, they have not paid enough attention to identifying precisely the object of negation. What is intrinsic reality or essentialized existence, isn't it? And we have to really have a really clear image of that in our mind, and we maybe should also check with our own experiences. How do things appear to exist to our perceptions, and how do we grasp at them to exist, and how do they actually exist? Okay? So when we don't do that, and without a clear image of object of negation, then we engage in all this analysis, use this reasoning and that reasoning and this analysis and that analysis. Then at the end, it just only, end of, concluding that nothing exists at all. So we get into that nihilistic assertion and claim. And as Geshe has, really quoted from his memory, what is stated by Lama Tsongkhapa in the Lecture Nyingbo, Essence of Eloquent Explanation, a very powerful and clear statement. And Lama Tsongkhapa said, Rinpoche, that to be able to understand this crux of the matter, things are empty of intrinsic reality, we really have to make sure to get the clear image in our mind of intrinsic reality. What is it, right? Should things exist intrinsically, how must it how should it exist, right? And we should verify that with our own innate grasping, okay? Because things are appearing to us as intrinsically existent, and our innate grasping is colluding with it, like, this is what I believe, the truth is here, And we really have to get to that level, personal relevance, and figure it out, And if we don't do that, we might become very good in the use of the language, terminologies, right? And if we never check with our own innate experience, grasping, we will miss the point. It's just like, especially Geshe is chuckling over this, in the monasteries, right? Monks are trained to debate. They are metaphysical, experts. So they know that nothing exists intrinsically, right? And everything's dependent arising. They can just throw the term right and left and up and down, and just, you can be very fantastic, propounder of all these theories, but still deep down, right, you don't realize how things appear to your mind as intrinsically existent, how you're grasping at that. And if that switch left unaddressed and unidentified, all this, debate and theorizing and, arguments, and it's like, okay, it is whatever, yeah. It's that. I was going to say something else, so I caught mindfully not to say that. So it just ends up in parroting, isn't it? So we learn the language very well. A parrot learns the human language very well and says it very neatly. So that's what it is. You become very intellectual experts, and maybe you are linguistic and you are very good in terms and eloquence and all of that. But bottom line is you are stuck like anybody else.
La Nangya Yimbe, Demba number job of Pudu, Keba Shidaru, number Namjati, Inila, Nangi Jungsi, Menene, Nangi Jungsi, young Menene, told them tell them baby. Ribe Kunza number Jabba Sujamba, Gawa knows, or this or that. Juptama Shanda say in any Paruba Zebashi, I don't get them, they need to go out to the part of 소소 대인 남자들은 수행했다. 돈을 좀 연하면은 소소 로그시네. 대인 그게 나게 매워지. 건지 샤토고 그랬어. 그래서 단다디 디 로그시들다 근데 돈을 좀 리베까스. 양 행월 유세 라운드 전다. 제가 동동 주지 리바가 군소 누운 거로 가스는 다 누운 거로 양포 유에서 지금 힘고 유에서 야 주식 나오듯 제가 난게 통되어 다 리바 가서네 매비샤로 와 어디래디 제가 근데 야 녀마다 간지 개바도 되니 때는 그게 이 현달 파데게 니 저런 나놀이야 되니는 개완도스는 난게는 종주야 여러분 이제 소소가 랑룩들 야 아니 되니 개와들이 개된 게 수요 말세요 나 간지
So we are on page 161, right on the top. So what is stated there is this, that many early masters, maybe they were very good in arguing with other positions and pointing out the contradictions in their positions with regard to the true truths. Okay? They're very good with that, pointing out like you got the paradoxes, the contradictions here, and this is how it cannot be, right? And here, gentlemen said, really, you have to look within your own system. Do you have a contradictions in your position? Okay? So if you have a contradictions in terms of asserting the true truths, because the true truths must be compatible, right? The presentation, they must not invalidate or negate each other. If your presentation of the true truth is contradictory in the sense that one truth, validity, it undermines the other truth, or vice versa, then you have a contradictions there, and that cannot be a correct presentation on the true truths. Okay? And so by that, when we look at what the opponents have been saying, is this. So they said that if we put things under ultimate rational analysis, we don't find anything. And we agree with that as Madhyamikans. But their conclusion is that nothing exists at all, right? Nothing exists, even conventionally, nothing exists at all, because this rational ultimate analysis has verified nothing exists, nothing is findable. And then you argue with them, how can you say nothing exists at all? No, we don't mean nothing really exists, but things exist for mistaken consciousness or perceptions, But that's a contradiction, right? If nothing exists at all, if that's your conclusion, then what need is for you to say something exists for somewhere, for some kind of perception? Because that is self-contradictory, right? Nothing exists at all, and then you said, something exists for, mistaken perception. Okay? And so what basically, in that opponent's position is that by looking for what we think is the ultimate reality, that analysis ends up destroying the conventional reality or the truth, isn't it? And that kind of a truth presentation is not feasible, because the true truths must not be incompatible and nullify each other's existence.
책세리도 양도 책세리 최는 동담도 군도기 때문에 미게 봤어. 세라 태바 쪽니 릭바 많이 발레 대바 지바 셔바이는 쿠전 군도기 때문에 넘버 줘발레 케베치 지디베 쇼니레 네디 군도 쇼 지세위 제르거베 태바신 도바 제지 지디베 게라 배 연raptar 지디베 슈루데 냐바 추 권는도 시지 군조 네마이노 시 군조레 냐비 줍다모 고기 군조 명고고 시 송지 디니르제베 리베 제바존네 군조바 나반 제바 디닌조발레 미게바 송베 군조 군조베 수소 리베 고고바네 로본디 공바테만이 베시바샤 세워티리야 다 간지 단도 색색가 돼서 교회는 대치고랬어 교회는 동담바도 군조 대바 남자리 그게 틀라 태바지 리베지막 존에 에네 동담베 리바티 군조 나 자지 강가 있는 거고 있으기도 왔어 녀디스고 말이지 어디 러시아 초바도 고고를 매기제 에네 지데베 gem볼 용사 피게 다 배 지금 그 무슨 줘야 저거가 짜는 거고 말이에요. 저는 태바전도 이제 등고고였어.
No.
군도님의 루다마 관람 거기서 어디 다 등고고요 마도 질 군송 고고면서 군도 선생 거 다니에 뒤에 발라 샤그러.
No.
지금 다니에 샤그러. 어디로?
No.
제가 어디에 제가 다 뒤에 집에 가지 데코나 집에 릭바티 에네 윤제 명고 마세 에네 가스 윤제 고그레 세야디 에네 다 에네 로본디 고바 때문에 스고다 고본 디스다 파바 야지신 찍바라 왔다 나와타 버와 어디 디마리 식세리 저 디 세계 망고 샤샤스 다 저런 데는 동답에 리베 군도 타니 위바가 공고야 로본 공바 임스도 가서 왔다 식세리 디신 저런 나게리아도 왔어 어디 디마리 왔다 가시
So on page 161, Lama Tsongkhapa is explaining here that in the opponent's assertion of the viewpoint, so they assert that ultimate rational analysis, it really refutes or negates or invalidates conventional reality or things exist conventionally. And they said that is the ultimate viewpoint of Nagarjuna and Aryadeva and all of that. And Lama Tsongkhapa says you got it wrong because you look up in the works of Chandakirti, such as the Clear Word Commentary, Siksal in Tibetan, which is quoted on page 161. And let me quote the first sentence. Unskilled in ultimate and conventional truths, you sometimes apply analytical standards inappropriately and destroy the conventional, unquote. So, the Chandakirti has explained it clearly that whether or not things exist conventionally, we don't need to apply any analysis to that. But you are inappropriately and incorrectly applying ultimate rational analysis to that. And then you come to the conclusion that nothing exists at all, and that kind of assertion destroys the conventional reality or the truths. So that is not acceptable. Actually, the Madhyamikins or the Nagarjuna and his disciples, Aryadeva and Chandakirti and all of the above, so they accept that things exist just like the world accepts. The example given here is the elders, right? Just the way elders have experienced, how things exist through their valid cognitions, that's how things are accepted to exist. We don't apply rational analysis to that. And that's what the opponent is doing, and that's where they got got a wrong application there.
and get young yeoman, he calls your mouse. Said that dear, that the Hashang was not teacher that Tono Rebecca, young Gundo Tungo, you said, Nangeke Lang Yorova. Said that the Nangeke Lingy, any that as a 10 the partial. Any number to the mother, sends of a daughter was Rama Suina, and the Shendar by it didn't go out at the new shit and go so lonely, didn't go out on the Sushi Maris. That did that missive of Rejase. But did that cool mouse and this general was that hard job that considered missive of Rejas.
So the concluding paragraph on page 161, once again, emphasize this point, that what the opponent has asserted here, I think again we refers to the Hoshang who came to Tibet and his followers, that Hoshang, not all other Hoshangs, who basically said that nothing is findable under ultimate rational analysis, so nothing exists at all. And then when you tell them, how can you say nothing exists at all? No, I really don't mean nothing exists, because things exist for the mistaken perceptions, right? So that is a very contradictory positions, and that kind of presentation or assertion on the true truths is not feasible, because by asserting the ultimate reality, you are destroying the conventional reality, and that's not feasible. And you accept that as the position of Nagarjuna and followers, and here Lama forget about that. That even doesn't, how should I say, fit to be the position in any of the Buddhist schools of thought. Don't ascribe that to be Nagarjuna's position of that. That even doesn't qualify to be in the schools of thought of Buddhism, because in any schools of thought within Buddhism, they present the two truths. At least from their perspective, the true truths they present are compatible with each other. They don't, contradict. They don't have a contradictory positions within their school of thought. Okay, and so if you look in the Chitta Martin's Minds-Only School of Thought, or you look in the Southern Tikas, or you look in, each of them present true truths, but at least from their point of view, the true truths are compatible. They don't kill each other. Well, they didn't say that. I just have to use that word to make it strong. Okay? And so your position is so contradictory, and it does not even qualify to be part of a Buddhist schools of thought. Forget about claiming that to be Nagarjuna's standpoint.
Tsimi chomo la ta nungo be swimming ju mo ta kida leni khanje ngondo ya jure ta dende ga khele da tele ya theg maris thondu ji ji rigbe ganga ka tha re chig la re wa ta kezi chu khele ngi yube kezi yube na ene tsama ji go tseme thug maris tingi ji ji long ran meg na na tsama mes kezi khaji di la sa di ke wa ta da tikona ni chu bo do chebe ti me ga ta tikona chu chebe rigba ti ene United de Kagu Marista, and the town of Shirsawa. That's semi Chomo said that make no some myself, dealing him that I some years ago. But semi Chomo town and global Susie in Minipani, so over Kelly, but not semi Mojoba Mintage, semi Truba, One of them Gunjik the semi. She so much that thing, and then you didn't be mills of Hiban. They couldn't the Sema in Bakagi. You tell me the Sema in Bakawa menos. What is it? In the inner Sugalas of attack of the make to the Sema and make the night to do this. They do any woman Juwal, then Namguji Museum, Namgus and Namagu, Jidin Sama is also a hero. So what did Jidin said, Yasema Maris. And they couldn't log a mojo when you did to take on the same Marisigo. Sure, can't do some of Marisigo Maris. Cono Toya Toyaganga, Cono Semare de Vares.
So now we move to the next important subpoint, which is presented as: you cannot eradicate conventional phenomena by refuting them through investigating whether valid cognition establishes them. Okay. Just to recapitulate what is happening here. Those of you who have got the textbook, I think if you look on page 155, the major subpoint is called showing that the Madhyamika critique does not eradicate conventional existence. This has 4 subpoints. And we just finished talking about the first subpoint, which is you cannot eradicate conventional phenomena by refuting them through investigating whether they are capable of withstanding rational analysis. I know it's a mouthful, but there you go. Now we move to the second point. You cannot eradicate conventional phenomena by refuting them through investigating whether valid cognition establishes them. Geshe last a little bit of a explanation that helps us to think is the point number 1 is that opponents said that Madhyamikan's position is a nihilist position because they said if we put the things under ultimate rational analysis, nothing is findable, nothing is found to exist, so therefore that means nothing exists at all, isn't it? And that is supposed to be the Madhyamikan's position. And Madhyamikas have been telling all this time, no, what is refuted is the intrinsic reality, not the conventional reality per se, so you missed the point, right? That's what we discussed. Now the point number 2 is, now opponents are saying like, okay, then if things exist, okay, you said, okay, rational ultimate rational analysis is not the right thing to apply, then they must be established by some other valid cognitions. So tell me, what are those valid cognitions, right? And the mathematician say, well, it is actually the worldly valid cognitions, right? The visual valid cognitions, the auditory valid cognitions, I said. But they say, no, there are no valid worldly cognitions, and then they quote like Samadhi Raja Sutra, King of Concentration Sutra, where there are statements like eyes and ears and so forth are not valid, right? He said, look at that, Buddha said in the Samadhi Raja Sutra, eyes and ears are not valid, So there is no valid cognition to verify the existence of things. Again, that's how they are going to come back. So with that prelude on page 163, supposed to be, the big caption reads, those who have got the e-book called Valid Establishment. Okay? And so what is stated there? So for example, in Chandrakirti's middle way, Madhyamik, there is a statement which reads, I quote, the world is not valid in any way. So the opponent said, look, Chandrakirti says the world is not valid in any way. So where are valid cognitions, you said, that could verify the existence of things? Okay? So what that meant is, that statement is this, that the worldly sensory valid perceptions are not valid in regards to the ultimate reality. It does not mean that they are not valid at all. They are valid with regard to their own objects. Right? For example, right, the visual valid cognition is valid with regards to the forms it perceives. Auditory perception is valid with regard to the sounds it processes, isn't it? It is just that these sensory valid cognitions that the world uses are not valid with regard to emptiness or ultimate reality. Why? Because as ordinary people, our mind is usually not oriented towards, right, thinking about the ultimate reality. How do things really exist? We really don't care. Oh, he didn't say that, my footnote. So that is our orientation. So therefore, our sensory valid cognitions are not valid at all with regard to the ultimate reality. That's the meaning of that statement, not that they are not valid at all or they're completely messed up,
어디 가야 대단 중대를 스타트다 디미다 간제 이는 지대가 비게 대코야닐 테마 말이 뭐지 지도 코나게 테마로서 요래서야 되고 뒤다 주된 해야 돼. 중대를 대단한 대코야니 사마라 파바코나 테마인지 파바 마이베 탄 마인 지든 지지 네베 제바 제비 대코네 나버제발 지대 통화 테마를 켈레네 대다 인데 계든 지든 테마이는 지 뒤에 파시 지구 파벨은 지시샤 지구 파벨은 지시샤 lumba tsama riba mayi no she song sos tereja da kanje kezi ene da meg nawa la soba de ene karsa te khana yela ene tsama mari chidan tsama res da meg nawa la soba da di tu tereja da henje kadu zan ene henje yuba ne jide tseme tugo res 제가 디 무슨 트래블 다처럼 메서 네 무슨 노도 쓰는 단자 간주 오메가 저바지로 대지과 인사리로 제가 디시드다 네 현재 메바데 에너지데 또 도고 말했어 세마 말했어 현재 메바 지데 세메 또 도고 예나 에는 간도 람군 거야 메도 와세 다 지데바 간가 거 당보고 제어디 가가 메기 돌아 간가 통데 암조 가가 거거 되고 와 제가 ini lam ten pa toni ten pa ko ya jita mendos ko this is what that kisam ko dele ya khaya sama me dibji lang ro ta gandu dikhe ba ka gandu te khona yin sama mare ma do jita ko khadu khona to so yutel sama re la ro
so we are still on page 163 and this is related to the passage quoted from Chandrakirti's explanation of the middle way. Statements such as in Chandrakirti's work called "The world is not valid in any way," or the statements we found in the Samadhi Raja, King of Concentration Sutras, where something like eyes and ears are not valid. What those statements actually mean is that as ordinary worldly people, our sensory valid perceptions are not valid in regards to the ultimate nature or the reality. but they are valid or could be valid in regards to their respective objects. So what is accepted by the world through their direct valid cognitions or valid cognitions, we must accept them as they are. If we refute what is verified by the direct valid perceptions of the world, then you're going nuts and crazy. You are just simply negating what's in front of your eyes or under your nose. You just can't do that unless you have gone crazy. So we have to respect that. And so in regards to refuting inherent production from the others, remember the 4 modes of production: production from self, production from others. The production from others is to be understood as something produced intrinsically from others. Okay, something like that. Okay. So now the ordinary valid sensory perceptions are not capable of understanding that. Okay, but that requires ultimate rational analysis. Okay, and if it doesn't, then we can make these arguments that there's no point to study emptiness and to meditate on emptiness or cultivate the path, because as we are born and we grow up, all these valid perceptions just are part of our life, isn't it? We don't need to be trained and meditate to have the valid eye perceptions or the ear perceptions. It's just part of our development, right? So as a part of our natural development, we should be able to realize and understand emptiness as it is. But that's not what it is, the case, right? And so those statements should be understood as not valid. Our sensory valid cognition perceptions are not valid with regard to ultimate reality, but they are valid to their own respective objects.
ini zawa changani rewa jaya de shiri de se mare ani ngel zawa maran thonda ngel she indi di kong di longda na shinde se ro ta di shinde de se ro mel sa ba ko te ko na ni ngeve she pa be lam khong di she wa she chidum da te ba da sa ba do go ba da driba de che ba ka da driba de che ba mai ba jo she na te ne tra mai ya mai no se 다 직대게 베네 남자 미소 되게 돼야 데코나 이 세마이나 이네 건도 데코나 공치니 이네 비게 제바방야 돈다야 힐라스도 드롭 티교를 체름송 이네 시고야 민도 아시 이네 직대 그 코나 람사 데코나 지간 제목을 떠오르고도 아시 어서 데르 말아 디 파벨람 고바 요르 와수다 다 파벨람 고바 요 세이나 당한테 남베 투스 강가 캐는 거라 와 다 남게 된 거라 말이야
we are on 164 on the top. So what is explained is this, that our ordinary sensory valid perceptions cannot be valid with regard to ultimate nature of things or reality. If that were the case, then there is no need for Arya's transcendental wisdom and the path, cultivating that. Okay? Because right from our birth and developmental process, we have acquired that whole skill. There is no need to meditate, no need to study. We should be able to see the emptiness just like we are seeing forms or something like that. It should be part of our life, but it isn't. So then the whole, structural practice that talk about, right? We need to abide by pure ethics, and then we need to cultivate calm abiding, shamatha. Then we need to cultivate a special insights, vipassana. Then we need to integrate them, and that's how we will spiritually grow. All these things become useless if our ordinary valid cognitions are good enough and valid with regard to emptiness, right? Why do we have to go through all this, ethic practice and shamatha practice and vipassana practice? We don't need that because, this all becomes useless. But that's not the case, because all Buddhists will accept there is, all this practice have purpose, okay? And all Buddhists accept that the noble beings or the Aryas or the transcendental beings, they have this special perception or realization of emptiness, that we don't have as ordinary people. No. So we will stop there today, and we welcome your questions.
Hi.
Yep.
With regards to distinguishing the object of negation and then noticing also the grasping that goes into it. Now, it seems, I could be mistaken, but a few years ago I asked Geshe Rinpoche, Geshe Dakpa Tenzin, about something similar about this, and he said the appearance-making of true existence does not go away until like way after, I think, Bodhisattva level 7 or 8 or something like that. So does that, so here's now the question.
Okay.
So when we're distinguishing the object of negation, the appearance of it isn't going to go away, yes? So we're basically, we're not, even though we're distinguishing it, we're not really doing anything with it. The appearance is not going to go away. We're just going to work with the grasping. Can we double check
Okay,
that?
sure. Yeah. That came clear to me. I think that's right. What can I show you again? That and then so ya chue tham che ani karso orta rangan ruban number wagen na was a machine shen de yor wagen situ kan ya ta tanda marangi ya sungje shamba ji ke lama ji ming person wagen karso de tanda rangshin ruban nawa chor wagen nawa de be me ba cha la sa tho bo shi bo le na ma chor wagen nawa de rang za de de su du su wagen dinde yi be yi na ta nga zo tanda gak cha nguen zin che chor wagen gak cha khari ba chema chi nguen zin de da 당아저 내가 저디 셴바디 매버서에 마더라고게 나와더라 개체고가 말고 거기 교회는 곳이 대대고 왔을게 사토보지 말래봐도 거라거라로 와 거기 가서 내가 스케임인도 왔어 와 디다가를 왜스 당아저 진거에 셴바들 진거에 마더라고게
나와디 다 비지 대노디 비지 상와제바디 디고래
너르베게
리 사상다 상질 되나요 말아
나래 사주베 정신 셴바를
냠야도 요 말아 데마 이다 심지 강가 사주바 있는 되나요
저 알아다 나와들 시대 제게 뭐 다들 셴바들
돈이 또 전도 나는 그거 다 간저 배는
알아다
기마다니 너무 희원도 중요했던 거 되지 거래 돼요 너무 셴바지야 요 말아
나래
어디서
나서
그 정식어 말아
나서
정식을 자꾸지 추위래
셴바들 슌고 그러나
미세 뒤져서 정식이야 말아
나래 yes with regard to things appearing to our perceptions as intrinsically existent or truly existent, now we use this interchangeably in the Prasangika, it's the same. And that really goes until we become Buddha. Even the Bodhisattvas on the 10th ground, except that they are in a meditative state of equipoise, there is no appearance of intrinsic reality. But otherwise, they still receive appearance of intrinsic reality. Yeah? And so that's right. Our job is to be able to identify precisely the object of negation and counteract our grasping at, right? Just like the intrinsic reality or the true reality. And so what happens is once we realize emptiness, yeah, as it is, so at that point, because of that realization, our grasping is, how should I say, affected. Things might appear to us as truly existent or intrinsic existent, but we are not going to grasp at them, to be intrinsically existent. It's just like, you look in the mirror, we see the reflection of our face in the mirror, we know that is just reflection, that's not the real face. It's just like that. Your realization that emptiness helps you to see that distinction, right? Yeah.
But there are certain things that do disappear with practice. For example, if Steve appears to me as stupid, and I work on that, and I purify some karmas, and he could actually stop appearing as stupid. So some appearances do stop. Like initially he appeared as inherently stupid, and then I realized that label's coming from my side, for example. This is one example, yeah?
Okay,
so some things do disappear. So is there a criteria for what can disappear and what can't disappear at our stage?
Oh, I see. ngazu chedan da dirwa ge mikuma jilo chashana rwa ge ta chetam je dama da na yin go rwa na wa di ka so khari na wa di ko na wa ta temba yin ba che rwa ge ya na wa di chube na wa da rwa ge rangon ju nang ge rwa ina di ko temba me ma ta dinde ye wa che gi ta ka so cheshi jinsa de yo yo ma re so rwa ge se jen rwa na wa di nang wa na shi na wa la re rwa ge ana mi kansa je lembar sin nang ge no ko lemba yin ji rwa ge lemba yin lemba na de ju rwa ge 다이네 lemba rang신 그 lemba 나다 거 다이야 딱다 돼요 뭐
예.
어딘데
데 시거라 다 먼저 덴지세야 돼 데노세야 나야 돼 가르서나 다고 껴통하면 이거는 데마도 해니 용이서 되기다 나래 시거라 와
나래
어디 너너도 디디 나세 또그 나나야 데마 메베 빼도 다 간도 되시고 다 기마도 숭년도 샤워라 와 어디 샤워다 다 나고도 와서 나와래 된대요 말이지 이네 벤 다 지명아 다베 이네 봉하다 행도도 따다 랑부난고도 와서 이제 따도 랑고 요말 와서
나래
다 기지 저기 저기나 이네 도 따도 샤기 제고 그래서 도 리바타는 다 허로 버름을 쉐지
다 간제게 인디 시리비다 가랑 간저 배트 저 방산다 상계도 가랑 안되기 대난데 예도 디보다 대도 거로 대난데
근데 데로 시접 다 데노 데데 시접라 샤웨네면 강시 강지 록 데노사데 간도다 동인고소도 로드 파피 심제규를 디펜디 공갈 그 데노 예비 차로와
나래
아데 차다 거기 가서 코인 데노데야서 샤워데 그거는 거기 좀더 식자시고
나마 좀 교회 계시는 말와
시고 말와
다들 셴바
셴바 유나 아니 좀 시그러와 베든 간도 디지 메가 카르사 좀 리보체세야죠 어디다 이시에 일본 싱가포르고 내는 싱가포르는 저거 지금 이게
알아요.
처음에 동사하지 봐. 어디 이거 현바요는 다도 본거로 와.
알아요.
다 간다는 민에 가르때 되나 자 뒤마 송야 성도 용어라고 그래서 숭예히 뭐 하고 와라. 숭예 밥 먹었나?
알아요.
이거 튀디 밥 먹었나 다 좋아. 네가 좋아. 어디도 있어. 현바도 또 좋아다.
What Geshe says is so that appearance of intrinsic reality, just because things appear to us intrinsically, maybe that's not too much a big deal. The why it's a big deal for us is because we believe in that, we grasp at that. So grasping is the issue. Where that appearance of intrinsic reality completely goes away is only when we become an enlightened being, Buddha. Until then, even on the 10th ground, it still exists. And so just like, for us, if we are at a magic show, all kinds of magical things we can enjoy, but we are able to differentiate between, right, the show and what's reality, isn't it? Or like we look in the mirror, we see that is my reflection of the face, not my real face is in the mirror, right? We are able to. So like that, once we realize or understand emptiness, then that point, even though things appear to us intrinsically just like now, but now we're able to differentiate, right? We don't grasp at it. So there's like chuckling over this story, probably, I don't know whether it's a real original Tibetan story or we got it from some of your books, I don't know. But the story is this. Poor animals. So the king of the jungle, lion, told all the animals, right, because he's killing all the animals, right? Animals, I think the rabbit is supposed to be the wisdom one, right? So come up with this strategy. Please don't kill everybody because you can't eat everybody, like you're just messing up, right? So why don't we make a deal? Every day, one of us will, whoever the turn is, going to come to you, and you eat that, okay? And so be happy with that. So don't kill unnecessarily too many of us. Somehow, the king of the jungle said, okay, fine, I'll do that. So many people got killed. Now it was rabbit's turn, right? And he said, you know what? Yeah, that's true. Today's my turn, so I'm your food, right? But before that, I want to tell you one thing. Actually, I saw an animal who seems to be more scary and powerful than you. And the lion couldn't take it, ego up. How can that be? I'm the king of the jungle. It just cannot be. He said, no, there is one, I tell you. He said, no, bring me to him. So he brought him to the well, and he said, look down there. I saw exactly there. So the lion became so ferocious, like, how can it be? But the reflection came back, and he thought that's really scarier than him inside that. So he just jumped into that. So he killed himself. So that's what the grasping is, right? He believed in that reflection. He thought, oh, that's more scary than me, and he jumped. So then the rabbit said, hey, great. So now we are all free. So it's kind of, so we are grasping at the intrinsic reality. That's what is keeping us, right, in the samsara. So with other things, with things appear like the conventional, sometimes it's just like maybe, let's say, a person or somebody is a little, not so intelligent, appears as such, maybe that could be reality, but sometimes it's our own misperceptions. Once we get to know the person, then we say, oh no, I really had the wrong impression about me. It goes away, right? So that would be a little different than dealing with emptiness. Yeah. Any other questions?
Including, in mind transfer and mind training practices, we train to start to perceive people as near and dear.
Yes.
So we have to challenge their appearances as enemies or untrustworthy or whatever. So that's different. Is that what we're saying?
Okay. Yeah, I'll go back to this. This again, that the Mora said, depending on the logic, Penata, the Chakdan of Sobagais, the Rovage, and then the Chaw, the Nyan, the Chada, many Parma, some go Rovage. Tammy Chaw the Chalk or a Shago, and went to Chaw in Barovage, and Chada Chashago, in a Shava de Lang and Zug, this Gomaras, that Chaw, Shaggy years on, the Chabajigurwa, Chatal and Nangi years on, Tawajigurwa, and did now the many park are safe where it's another Namjulojongi, Yamlin in the Marves again.
Did it that did it? Did not say that
you
did not Kadu say some Lolo, Recadu Yora, Chita, any Dada, Neva Maya, courage, Teddy die in a suicide. Then he said, let's say, Sir, what passion, said chickly in the Dada, Juju, what did there sometime in Daniel. Shabba in the Shabba go in the co, you know, Mongita or Tindes Montani, Shatan Yamshe, Daniel Gongora.
Into Tata, Mareske, yeah, in the Lojong mind training practice, for example, in order to deal with our attachment, anger, and all of that with regard to three peoples, right? We have a friend, enemy, and a stranger. Yes, friend appears to us as very dear and near one, and the enemy appears as disgusting and all that, and stranger is a stranger, whatever, right? My students say that's a whatever person there. But the reason why we deal with it is not so much we are denying that the friend is a friend, appears as a friend, but that's a fact. But what we're saying is we should not put too much trust in that appearance, because friend and enemies are based upon relationship change, isn't it? This one's a friend now, but he or she could be our enemy or was our enemy before, isn't it? This appears as an enemy, but due to relation changes, this could potentially become our good friend, right? So there is uncertainty in the way things are defined, right? So we must not think like, oh, the friend forever kind of thing, may not be true. So that's how we deal with our attachment and anger towards the enemy. Yeah. Yes.
When you're doing emptiness analysis
Yes.
on the self,
Yes.
And you're working to establish the object of negation. Let's say you were going to use the Heart Sutra as the trajectory for your analysis. You're going to start with form, which would be the gross body.
Right.
It wouldn't just be, based on the talk, it wouldn't just be working on the body. It would be the part of the body that you feel is intrinsic. So it would be, where do you think the I really is in the body? Correct? And does he recommend, when you do analysis on the self, that you go about it in this manner? Or do you go about it in more of a less
generic?
Yeah, more of like a generic way when you're going through the 5 heaps to work on your analysis.
Sure. Quran condition the dire ken ta tan dang anzo kar so re ta tandam choje ribat tan ro ba ken ta mana ta nga sgen rang shin de ba nga chro ba ta ale ngun ji ya bu thu ba cha sha ro ba ken in din de chi ta khawa do si de kan la 다 베나 코나 디 랍 송 again nga shirab nim ko cha shan ro again su me ta mes la ro ba ta ngo de su ne zu ko tong ju yu ro again hine ta su de ko su cha zang la ma le bena ta rang xin ju be su so na ka chi gi da so so su gu cha she ka ren ne ro again wa ta nga seng de di re sha sam de ne ta ga lang li ya ro again nang dang de sam lo dang te go go re ya na su chi sam ba ro again rang xin ju ba ro ba ya ma na phung gu nga ga lo ka ba che me ne chi ge min du ro again di le ya ming nam che go go kan de re ming nam de ko chira ba jen su ne su gu cha she je ro again rang xin ju ba jin de ju ro ba ta ga lang li ya di re de me de sam lo ding go go re ka chi go ro so
알레 소다 소랑이 트바지 카데지 고르시오레
那么在苏让新主把这金巴罗给，他让新主把苏的卡瓦都塞罗给，他苏个恰些罗给，他恰些抗容就说了罗给，他第一次在上面这个用这个罗给，这个大个人里呀，先得过来，然后他苏个恰些刚刚在，那个啥的碰碰啊在有罗给，刚刚在那民族是的了呀，那接不起的，你让去过看的来说，他接不起当去罗。
接不起当都挺喜欢的，但那俺这手在那皮筋被速度下那个让去吃吧，是速度给是吧？
那。
现在速度是那个，电脑的咱打手是俺说速播是来呢，打速播是那这别，如果的那个他速播的这下去我们睡觉是吧？
那里。
但这个早些是速播的，你不早些啊，就开始就是在那，你下去人家真的可以呀嘛是吧？看看下去呢，让也速是呀是吧？
那里。
下去人家真他的早些么子呀，这个看着都是别，那丢着我人这喜欢呢，那个下去对吧？个就个。그 속속모터 버려요. 거기 라도 거라. 그래. 그 속도 있나? 아니 가지 때는 맞네. 내가 라자 탁고 디그러. 어제 제가 정신 뭐로 유진데 어디 어떻게 차이 봐 시우는도 그 아니 매업 차로 여자. 이 속도 뭐 있어. 강지가 정신 잡아도 속도 없이 봐라. 텐데스야 돼. 현도 봐 찍어라.
디치데마다 그 코디 삼점은 베나다 수를 차시나로 와게 땅 아래 수여버려 그 남았다 그냥 수는 땅 아란 제부 시비나로 와게 말을 랑신도 버든 건데 디수 제버든 게 너구도 제셔들어 와게 디레셔 삼 테나 다 다가랑 삼로 땅 들고 거려서 그래서 와게 거기 잡아도 멤버 하고 거려 와게 그냥 거다 되면 이게 너구도 제부 시비죠 와게 다 코랑신 저버디 디레셔 삼 되나 콜라
다 동시에 너구 저 랑이 저래 야삼 저 이너로 와 다 너구를 이제와래 너구 그런데 소도 찍래도가 디래도가 다때는 거다 너구대 노도 찍어라 걸 차기야라 때도 찍어래
당 아주 지대 괜찮다 퐁퐁 아주대 당보 수제 아니 초와제도 스 이미지 더 샤인지 I was just trying to make sure that he understood what we're saying and get Geshe says that when we apply the ultimate analysis reasoning, of course, it all starts with having a clear picture of intrinsic reality, right? Intrinsic I or the self first. And then we can start off probably with the form aggregate because it's just obvious facts, right? And so we go through each part of the body to say which one is, right, potentially or we think is the intrinsic I or the self. Yeah? And should we find any part of the body, I don't know, because I had to give him a concrete example. I hope that works. I said, let's say I know my arms are not intrinsic reality, but I have a beautiful nose, that potentially could be my intrinsic I, right? Then he said, you focus on that, whichever part of your body which tends to be appears intrinsic reality, say, which is that? For the nose has its own parts, isn't it? There's the right nostril, left nostril, and all this aspect, right? Which one is exactly that intrinsic I of the self? So when we do through all that fine analysis, we don't find anything in the form aggregate as that intrinsic self. Now we can move to the aggregate of feelings, right? And this is how we can proceed, with the 5 skandhas.
뭐 대다 가서 랑지 들어와서 축도 없이 라. 축도 없이 되는 걸 맞아요, 그거. 왔다 그것도 상모티가 동안 다 관계 랑지 들어와서 축도 없이 라. 축도 있는 걸 맞아요. 다 소소 수고 강도 있는데 다 랑지 들어와야 되죠. 소인데 가르치 왔다.
So Geshe is really emphasizing for us first to make sure that we get the clear image in our mind of intrinsic reality. Intrinsic means something existing from its own side, kind of like a very fixed entity, right? It doesn't have any parts or doesn't need anybody, right? It just can withstand itself, right? So with that, then we analyze, does such a self exist in any of the aggregates, right? Otherwise, again, our analysis might not go correctly. Yes. Yes. So if you don't mind, that will be the last question with the last minute.
Okay.
Yeah.
Real quick. Well, so in this explanation that Geshe just gave, he agreed with the proposition that the nose or a part of the body could be seen as or grasped as intrinsically existing self.
Okay. I can check with him.
Yeah, because I remember a few weeks ago I asked that question. He said, no, a part if you're grasping at a part of the body as your intrinsically existing self, then that cannot be. Because it, and I don't remember why, but or cannot explain it right now.
So your question is, I will double check with you, like, can any part of the body, let's say my beautiful nose, that appears as intensive reality?
Yes, well, according to his explanation just now, it was based on that.
Tanda di sikura gen, ta nga zo tanda gangsa ngunzi chadang chiyo rwa gen, ta gangsa di kasa rangchu tube ki nga chiyo na rwa gen, siddhuka nga di kane shagu do te rwa gen, an zam zamla dinda yon sikira sa, ta pena subu chashi chik rwa gen, nagu zebu chiyo rwa, di taga rang, ane ko rangshin tube taa inba sha, dinda yon sikira besa, subu chadang memba chiyo rwa, ko shaya chiyo rwa gen, ta ko memba da hagu go rwa, ko nagu di ki chashi kanga zena hagu rwa, ina ko shaya di, soso nagu yaku shib chiyo san, di wang rangshi tube taa rwa gen, dinda sha chiyo rwa.
다 지당 다 남도서야 돼 강야 유식으로 다 매 라토 말어.
No. Yeah, Geshe says, when we think in terms of what we call the conceptions, the thoughts, right? There's no way to stop the thought processes. So it's very possible that certain part of our body, for example, a beautiful nose or whatever, right? That itself maybe triggers or appears as intrinsic eye of the self. It is possible, I think. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Kange lo de timye jinde nyinda namda rabsebe jinye dungu jishe seche nye towa lebonze kanda sebe zonra mendo dunge jesebe lozo gunla boje taze yanla juju yangden son roda chedo nyemu leje chado jeze je mare muse dunge nyugu sinye jeze radina dene taje sajue tazo yanden hunzo yase tuwe gu chuda chujin jede dalu meze jambe yangla de omara bazana Omara bazana de zende kye kera weze ye dalu temo mimba rapsene kada tenje shunglu toba lode bobe na zelo lode kyaze butung pega je kyesang pungwe chudo mimba shen tenba zinla wando ki chanye chugun cha so wan de page 21. Obeisance to my Guru and Protector Manjushri, who holds at his heart a scriptural text, symbolic of his seeing all things as they are, whose intelligence shines forth as the sun, unclouded by delusions or traces of ignorance, who teaches in 60 ways with the loving compassion of Father for his only Son, all creatures caught in the prison of samsara, confused in the darkness of their ignorance, overwhelmed by their suffering. You who dragon thunder-like proclamation of Dharma, arouses us from the stupor of our delusions and free us from the iron chains of our karma, who wields this sword of wisdom, hewing down suffering wherever sprouts appear, clearing away the darkness of ignorance. You who have been pure from the beginning, who have completed the stages, achieving the highest perfection of a bodhisattva, whose princely body is adorned with 112 marks of a Buddha, I bow down to you, Manjushri, Omarabaza Na Di. O compassionate one, with the brilliance of your wisdom, illuminate the darkness enclosing my mind. Enlighten my intelligence and wisdom so that I may gain insight into Buddha's words and the text that explained. Page 31. Like the sweet perfume of white lotus, born in the ocean of knowledge, nourishing honeybees, the fortunate beings, your fame pervades all directions. You are proficient and powerful in upholding the precious doctrine. To you, O Lord Sang Tenzing Wangta, respectfully I pray.
Nhất tâm kính lễ Đức Văn Thù Sư Lợi, bậc đại trí, Ngài điều phục hai chướng ngại, tự nhật quan lan tỏa khắp mười phương, bậc thực chứng chân nghĩa màu rốt ráo, từ tim Ngài Bát Nhã Kinh thủ hộ nhiệm màu, cõi luân hồi chúng sanh thọ nghiệp báo. Sở hữu 60 pháp âm thù thắng, cùng đại bi Ngài hóa độ chúng sanh, tự từ mẫu chăm lo cho quý tử. Tiếng rồng vang Ngài thức tỉnh hữu tình, thoát khỏi vòng luân hồi nghiệp chướng. Gươm trí tuệ Ngài chặt đứt vô minh, tận diệt muôn vàn khổ đau cùng ách nạn. Trường tử Như Lai tối thắng toàn giác, Ngài an trụ nơi thập địa pháp vân, báu thân Ngài trang nghiêm thanh tịnh. 112 tướng hảo Như Lai, đê đầu đảnh lễ Đức Văn Thù Sư Lợi, cúi xin Ngài tận diệt ám chướng vô minh. Om Arapasanadi, con khẩn cầu dưới gót sen bậc đại trí, bàn pháp lực diệt phiền não vô minh, được trí sáng con thâm nhập nghĩa màu, pháp vi diệu cùng muôn vàn luận giải, như diệu hương ngọt ngào từ sen trắng. Hàng thiện căn như ong mật thọ nương, hồng danh Ngài khắp mười phương quảng bá, đấng thiện xảo uy dũng bảo tồn pháp bảo vô giá. Nam mô Lốp Sang Tenzin Quang Đắc, xin cung kính trì niệm.
Niyantaya